We're on page 53. We're starting a new section of Shulchan Aruch. It's because of this question that I didn't start last night. But it's okay. It's a better question than I have an answer, so let's not ask the question. We say, Siman Dalet, the 4th chapter. Dinei, the laws of Netilat Yadayim, washing our hands. I have right here, I think.
Yeah, I always bring it out every.
No, it's okay. If you found one.
Every class.
Uvo, and included in this are Chaf Gimel Seifim, 23. How do we translate Seifim last time? Subcategories?
Sections.
23 halachot. Yeah. The last section we had only had 17. So we're a little bit longer this time. And Siman Dalet takes us all the way until page 111.
Big.
We're having another scene for a while.
No parties for a while.
We're done with the short seif. Now we get a chance for a long one, a long siman.
All the next ones
You
also.
don't know how to wash your
If we
hands
wait
after
till they're
reading
gonna
this,
be
you
long.
never will.
Right. And then I'll tell you then, hey is pretty short. Vav is pretty short. Zayin is very short. All these are very short, not just pretty short, they're very short. Chet. That's ready to begin at Hilchot Tzitzit. Let me give you a heads up. Tzitzit is going to take us until the end of the book.
Yeah, it's good.
Well,
Tefillin is the next volume. We're going to make a calculated cheshbon. If we're going to go through all of tzitzit, if we're going to take the chapters that are relevant to us, maybe some of us, you don't ever make the cloth of your tzitzit anymore, so maybe those halachot we may not have to study, may have to study, but when we get there, we'll get there. For right now, just remember, we're taking 53 all the way until page 111. It's not as long as you think. It's just many halachot. But halachot that are important. Here's when things start to get serious. Go to the bathroom. Hey, go to the bathroom. Wake up in the morning. Here we're talking about the laws of washing our hands. And I'll tell you this, these halachot are twofold. Many of these halachot in Siman Dalet, but not all of them, are directly connected to the laws of washing your hand for bread. And therefore, when Maran, in the section of washing his hands for bread, speaks much less about washing your hands because he already covered it here. So if we were to study the laws of washing your hands for bread, you would actually have to come here first, study this, and then go back there. And therefore, it's good that we're going to spend time here. We're going to kill two birds with one stone, literally. The siyum, what we'll do now, I don't want to make a siyum during the 9 days. I know many people, they like to make siyums 9 days, and they eat meat. Okay, I don't like these stories. I don't like loopholes. So we're going to wait till right after Tishat B'Zal. We'll make ourselves a respectable siyum, something nice, and that way we can be happy. After the 9 days, we'll have a good time, and then
we'll have fish.
Then we'll have fish, right? There you go. You should know, those of you who, I don't know if you have this custom, but you hear that someone's making a siyum, and they waited to do it for the 9 days, but they could not eat meat. You should know, even at the siyum, they're not allowed to eat meat. So just, it's a nice game that Jews play, but the only time you can eat meat on the siyum that falls during the 9 days is if you actually happen to have, in your year of learning, it fell out during the 9 days, and you normally make a siyum the day that things fall out. That's when you're allowed to make a siyum during the 9 days, not the way that people like to do it today.
So the laws of Shaar are the full 9 days, not just the week of.
The full 9 days, not including Rosh Chodesh. Rosh Chodesh, Sephardim are allowed to eat meat. Ashkenazim don't eat meat. Ashkenazim have a reason. It says 9 days you don't eat meat. For us, we hold that Rosh Chodesh is still a holiday, so you can't have mourning on Rosh Chodesh. And therefore, Rosh Chodesh, we eat meat, and then the day afterwards we stop for all of the 9 days. The Yemenite community eats meat the entire week of Tisha B'Av until the last meal. The meal they eat before the fast, that's the only meal they don't have meat inside of. The one who wrote this halakha, that's the Rambam. That's the original halakha. The meal of Erev Tisha B'Av, you don't have meat. The rest of the 9 days you're allowed to. The custom among the Jewish people, it's a very old custom. It's thousands of years old. Not to have meat. We do that all of the 9 days.
I thought some only had it from Rosh Chodesh, the week of Tisha B'Av.
See, Sephardim, we get confused. Most of our halachot for Sephardim happen the week of. But meat is not one of them. Meat starts from Rosh Chodesh.
And Yayin the two? More complicated. Shabbat, yes.
I didn't see in the poskim that you can't have wine during the 9 days. It seems to be an Ashkenazi custom not to have wine during the 9 days. And it's an old one, not a new one. But I didn't find it in the poskim. So maybe I'm wrong, maybe someone will show me, but until then, I'm not convinced that it's... especially not Motzei Shabbat, please, those of you. And I see that some people have a custom. Motzei Shabbat, they do have the wine, they let a kid drink the wine.
Right.
It's not the way we do. We drink the wine. You made a bracha, boy play gefen. You drink the wine. You don't find that you make a boy play gefen and somebody else drinks the wine for you. You don't do that any other time of the year. So why would you do that on Motzei Shabbat? All right, page 53. Maran writes, Halacha Aleph. Yirchatz yadav, a person should wash his hands. Vivarech al netilat yadayim. They should make the blessing. Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al netilat yadayim. Haga, says the Rama, v'yesh omrim gam asher yatzar. Some say you should also say asher yatzar.
But that's only if you...
V'afilu lo asat tzarchav, and even if he didn't go to the bathroom.
Really?
V'chein nahagu, and this seems to be the custom. This custom comes from the Abu Raham. We mentioned him once. We're going to analyze all these words anyway, so we'll get into the halachot. Mayim, water, hapsulim, which are forbidden to be used, v'ntilat yadayim lesuda, for washing your hands during the meal. In water that you wouldn't be allowed to wash your hands with for bread. Next page. Ksherim, they are permitted, they are kosher, v'ntilat yadayim letfilah, for washing your hands for prayer. Mihu, but yesh mi sheomer, there is someone who says delo mevarech alayu, that he would not make a beracha on this water. Tell me what he just said. Well, let's say first one first. So, a person washes his hands, then he makes a bracha, then he makes a shar yatzar, even if he didn't go to the bathroom, according to the Rama. Maran would say if you went to the bathroom, obviously you would make a shar yatzar. Then he tells you water that is not allowed to be used for the meal is allowed to be used for what? For washing your hands now, for tefillah. But there is someone who says
Lo omerim bracha.
Oh, bro.
you don't make a bracha. What does that mean?
Yeah, what
Connection.
water is not permitted to wash your hands with, but you...
Yeah, what kind of
What's
water
that?
is that? Nowadays, you know,
Oh, you find like a mud puddle or something?
all that water.
Oh, you
can't
so
wash
it's
it for
okay to use
food?
mud to wash your hands before you go to Minion?
It's like we have a girls' camp living in there.
Something's happening over there. I don't know what it is.
It's like 30 people.
That's the question.
Now they
Tell
can
me that.
enjoy the
But I've
kitchen
seen people
plus.
use some
I'm gonna close the
pretty,
door.
how do you say, sketchy water for,
Sketchy water.
you know, like out of a puddle or
Makes sense.
a pond or
Well, it says you're allowed to.
Yeah, yeah, that's it.
It's just probably not as like
Water
well
was
done.
scarce in the old days. In some places, even now. Not now, turn on a faucet, it's easy.
The commentary on this halakha goes until page 63. This is not a simple halakha. This is getting serious here.
Yeah.
And here, we're going to have a lot of things to talk about, I'm sure. We're going to bring up many areas of halachot, things we're going to discuss that have relation to other places. We could answer the question now, what does that mean? But I'd rather not get stuck on that. We'll get there. There's going to be a section here until 63. We're going to talk which water is allowed for the meal, which water is not allowed for the meal. The example that comes to mind for me is the water that, if you did something with water, for example, water that you did some kind of other purpose with it. Let's say you use it to wash your counter. You wash your counter with water, and you collected it all in a bucket.
We call it gray water today.
Right? I mean, it's not absolute clean water, but it's not dirty. It's not
drinkable, though.
right. You wouldn't drink it, perhaps, because it's not because it's. Well, I don't know if it's bad for you. I don't know. Today, I don't know what's on your counter, but it could be used again. You could recycle that water. Some people might pour that in their plants, right?
So it's sort of like the wastewater.
Gray water is what we call it.
But it's not waste. I mean, yeah, it is wastewater, but it's not like bad water. It's just
No, it's been treated, but it's not drinkable. It's not potable.
okay. So simple. Okay, very nice. So this, but I don't want to talk about drinkable, not drinkable, because that is a different discussion. There is a discussion like that. Here I'm talking about water that you use for your counter, washing your counter. You would not be allowed to use this water to wash your hands for bread. It's water that you did something with them. Technically, you are allowed to use this water for washing your hands in the morning. What's the difference? We'll talk about that also. There are two different reasons for why we wash our hands. One for bread, one for waking up in the morning. The problem is, would you make a bracha on such water? What does it mean, would you make a bracha on such water?
Is the water...
It's not the most fit water to.
It's a matter of what would be like a pigul or abomination, something that isn't... Something like you're offering the Beit HaMikdash.
So then you wouldn't be allowed to use it to wash your hands. What kind of... You're right, Zev's right. That's the reason why they say you can't make a bracha. 'Cause what kind of water is this that you're using for washing your hands? I mean, the person who says you shouldn't make a bracha is probably going on the assumption you shouldn't wash your hands with it. So why does Maran have this like 50-50 opinion? You can wash your hands with it, but you shouldn't make a bracha on it.
Because it's not so easy to get water making.
If you're in a situation that you cannot get another one.
You're saying like Zev, you're both... I'm asking for the not the practical reason for why he would say such an opinion. Maran didn't tell you if you don't have other water, so we can't read that into Maran. Rather, what would be the halachic reasoning for such a thing?
It's doubtful. If it's a doubt,
What's doubtful?
so you don't say a bracha if there's a doubt.
Oh, very nice. Do you know this rule called sabal? Write it down. Sabal. Samich, beit, lamed. We're going to hear this rule a lot. Sephardim have abused this rule, and Ashkenazim have neglected this rule. I'll tell you exactly what I mean. Sabal stands for Safek, Berachot, Lehakel. When you're in doubt, Safek, doubt, regarding Berachot, whether to make a blessing or not, Lehakel, you are lenient. If you are unsure whether you make the bracha or you don't make the bracha, you are lenient. That's what the Talmud teaches us. We call this rule in halacha sabal, safek, brachot, lakel. What does it mean we are lenient?
If you're not sure, you lean
You
to
don't
the
say it.
side of
You don't
permissiveness
have to
rather
make it.
than strictness.
Which would mean what practically? Do I make the bracha or do I not make the bracha?
You say it, but without you don't say a bracha.
You don't say a bracha. So lenient, meaning you would do what it is you're doing, but without making the bracha on it, right? There's a posek who says, no, that's not what it means. What's lenient about that?
You're confused.
Well, what's lenient about it is that you don't have to be conscious of making the bracha.
Well, he says maybe the other way around. Maybe you're lenient that even though you're saying God's name in vain, according to one opinion, you're lenient that you can make the bracha anyways. Maybe that's what it means.
If you have the principle of it being unbecoming to use water that is not fit for a mitzvah like other mitzvahs, that would be like using like a really rotten etrog and then making a blessing on it in a way.
Okay. And I don't know the halakha would apply to the etrog, but I understand
No,
what
but
you're saying.
yeah.
But then you wouldn't be able to use that water anyways. Maran is it's like a halfway opinion. You use the water, but you don't make the proper bracha when you use the water. So to just say, if you're like that, say, don't use the water. Or say, use the water with the bracha. It can't be half okay and half not okay.
I think of the utilitarian aspect. I know we're probably not up to it, and we have a lot of differentiation to do, but, you know, when you're in a situation where you need to do something, but you don't have the right materials to do, it's like for a person
So
hiking.
I'm specifically avoiding this situation because it's a good idea, but it's not the answer to this question. It's a good idea. It's not an answer to the question though. It's like we would in my halachic lingo, and forgive me that I'm on record. It's like a mamzer halacha. What do you mean? It's like half okay, half not okay. No, he's Jewish, but not really Jewish. You know, something like along those lines. Sorry for using, I know in Ashkenazi Hebrew that's a profane word, but in real Hebrew we use it. It means illegitimate. It's an interesting, opinion. It's like halfway here, but not really. You can use the water, but you can't make a bracha on it.
Nish here, nish there.
Right, exactly. There you go. Nisht here, nisht there. You got it. That's Ladino for not here, not there.
But there will
Yeah,
be a lot of
yeah.
halachot like that.
It's very nice. There are many
If you
halachot
put
like
its
this.
hands in snow.
Okay, so let's wait. But not just by washing hands, by many things. You'll find, do it, but without a bracha. Sabal, safek, brachot na'akel. Now I'll tell you, that opinion that says it means you're lenient and you do make the blessing, that's the minority opinion. We don't follow that opinion. What we understand sabal to mean, when you're in doubt, some people say make the blessing, some people say don't make the blessing. You don't make the blessing. Err on the side of caution, meaning do it, but don't make a blessing on it. That way you don't get into trouble because saying God's name in vain is one of the 10 Commandments.
Is that the same with the vegetables, or is that a whole other?
Which vegetables?
You wash your hands before eating a.
No, let's
vegetable?
not go there. Not yet. It's good. We're going to get there, but not yet. Let's not do
That's
that yet.
also in bracha.
So, right.
Different reason.
Different. But I'll give you some examples of sabal. Safek brachot lakel. And I told you for a reason. Sephardim have abused this rule, and Ashkenazim have neglected this rule. It's two interesting approaches to this rule. Meaning, Ashkenazim don't make such a calculation. Our rabbi says to make the bracha, we make the bracha. Sephardim, even if our rabbi says to make the bracha, we won't make the bracha. So what's the point of having your rabbi? Like, you know what? I'll give you the example, the classic example. Maran says, this is kosher. Whatever it is, it's kosher. If you open up my book, I brought a list of poskim. Proud, strong, Sephardim. Even if 1,000 people argue with Maran, we still eat the food. Because he's right. Maran's always right. Nobody has the right to say that Maran is wrong. Okay. The same posek who says that, open up the Shulchan Aruch. Maran says make a blessing. But 2 people argue with him. Oh, 2 people who argue on Maran regarding blessings, we don't make the blessing. Why? Safek brachot na'akel. Sabal. What do you mean? What happened to Maran being so mighty powerful? 2 people argued with him. If 1 person argued with him, 50-50. But 2 people argued with him, he's already the minority, and we don't need to worry about the opinion of
What
Maran.
situation? What was the
What
case?
situation? I'll give you a great situation. Comes time for Halel of Rosh Chodesh. Who knows where I'm going with this?
Oh, whether to say the bracha or not.
Very nice.
Kollel.
Comes time for saying half Halel on Rosh Chodesh. That's when we say half Halel. Also on
Pesach
the
last
last 6 days of Pesach, right? We say half Halel. There's a full Halel and there's a half Halel. The halacha of saying Halel it's a halacha that we find in our rabbis. We source it almost back to the Torah. There's certain days you're supposed to be happy. Are you happy? You say Halel, so on and so forth. Rosh Chodesh. Maybe they thought it was the bathroom. They found it in the Talmud. Rosh Chodesh is in the Talmud. You celebrate Rosh Chodesh.
last week.
But saying Halel on Rosh Chodesh is called Minhag Nevi'im. It's a custom that the prophets, they instituted that you should say Halel on Rosh Chodesh. So we don't say the full Halel. We say only a abridged version of Halel to show that there's a difference. Okay. Along comes the Rambam. And he says, wonderful. On a full Halel we make a bracha. Half Halel, we weren't commanded to do it. So we don't make a bracha on half Halel. The Ashkenazi poskim and many Sepharadic poskim say, what do you mean? Just like you would make a bracha on half the mitzvot that we make that are rabbinic, So you would also make a bracha on half halal as well.
Maybe make half a bracha.
Don't laugh. There's actually a different bracha you make.
That's
half
why we
halal.
changed the wording.
The original bracha you should know for halal. Anyone know what it is? As found in the early posting.
Ligmor.
Baruch atah Hashem Elokei Asher Shem Tzadnu ligmor et halal, to finish halal.
Isn't that what we have in the Siddur?
Absolutely, that's what we say. Sephardim say. Ashkenazim had a problem with his blessing. One rabbi, not all Ashkenazim. One rabbi. His name was the Maharam Mirotenburg. He was a famous Rabbi Meir Ber Golan, the famous Ashkenazi rabbi. He was the last of the German Balei Tosafot. He was a famous posek. He said, "Okay, you make the bracha. Asher Kedushan, you commanded me to finish saying all of Halel. What if I skipped a word? What if I mumbled a letter? I didn't say it right. So it turns out I'm making a blessing in vain. Because I said I was going to finish the Halel, I didn't really finish the Halel. I only said everything except for one word. He says, it's a risky bracha to make, I don't like it, let's make a new bracha. Asher Kedushan b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu, likro the Halel, to read the Halel. That way read, I read half of it, I read the whole of it, I read 2/3 of it, doesn't make a difference, that bracha is okay. The Sephardim said, Rabbi Meir, don't you know, you missed a word, you missed a letter, it's not a Megillat to stay over here. You missed a letter, okay, you shouldn't miss letters, but you still finished the Halel, I mean, that's what you did. He said, I don't agree. And so the Ashkenazim follow the custom of the Maharam Mirotenburg, and they say, Likro the Halel. Little known facts about our religion. Little known facts. You won't find this bracha before that.
Now about our synagogue too.
Now here we have a problem. Where did Maharam Mirotenburg learn to make this bracha likrot ha'alel? Maybe a different bracha. Maybe ligmor ha'alel v'lo ad hasof. Maybe we should make a bracha like that to finish halel but not all of it. Maybe that's the bracha he should have made. He learned it out from those people who say a bracha and half halel. When they say half the halel, they can't say ligmor ha'alel. So what do they say when they say half? Likrot halel. Now Ashkenazim don't know that because they always say likrot halel. So for them, there's no difference between a full halel and a half halel. For us, Sephardim, who made a bracha on half halel, we on a full halel made ligmor halel, and on a half halel we said likrot halel. Oh, so tell me something if I haven't confused you already. What about the Rambam? So Maran in the laws of halel says, some say you don't make a bracha on half halel. Who is that? The Rambam. Some say you do make a bracha on half halel. Who is that? That's most of the world. And in Israel and the surrounding regions, what are the surrounding regions? Syria, Egypt, perhaps Turkey. The custom is like the Rambam, because the Rambam was the chief rabbi of Israel. He was the Maradata. They don't make the blessing on half halel out of respect for the Rambam. So what does Maran tell us to do? Some say like this, some say like that. And then in Israel they have this custom. So the classic rule of Shulchan Aruch is, if Maran says one thing and then he says another thing, which one do we follow? You know?
The first.
Depends. If Maran says, right, he's right. If Maran says stam, the halakha is like this, but there are some people who say otherwise, we always follow the first opinion. Because some people who say otherwise, Maran didn't mean to follow halakha, he was just giving their opinion out of respect. But if Maran says some people say like this, some people say like that, the second opinion is always the one we follow. Always. Always. If Maran says some people say no, don't make a bracha, some people say do make a bracha, we follow the second opinion. Always.
It's kind of arbitrary.
No, because it's like when you're wrapping up a discussion, so you want to show an argument, you always give their side first, and then you show why you're right. Okay. Yeah? So Maran is saying these rules were handed down from Maran. It's not like we made them up. He told us how the formulas to Shulchan Aruch work. That's why when someone tells me, he says in the Shulchan Aruch X and you said otherwise, it's not that I'm arguing with what it says in Shulchan Aruch, you just don't know how to read it. Maran gave us rules on how to read the Shulchan Aruch. The problem is, technically Maran gave a third opinion. In Israel, the custom is not to say a blessing out of respect to the Rambam.
Via the Rambam.
So let me tell you, in Yemen, which posek do they follow? Rambam. In Yemen, nobody made a bracha on half halal. Never heard of it before. Only when they came to Israel, they heard of people making bracha on half halal, and they thought they were crazy. You don't know what the Rambam says, you don't make a blessing on half halal? The Jewish communities of the world, the Ashkenazim made a blessing on half halal. The Sephardim, listen to me very closely, the Sephardim made a bracha on half Halel. I know Chacham Ovadia says not true, but it's not true.
So there's a difference, though, with minyan or by
Okay,
yourself.
so I don't want to go into the details. You're right. There is a difference between the minyan and that. The general picture. In Morocco, in Tunisia, in Algeria, in all they made a bracha on half Halel, except for in Israel and in Syria and in Egypt and possibly I'm not sure, but possibly in Iraq and Iran, the areas around Israel. The Jews that were there.
Still there?
I hope not. The Jews that were there.
This is
A few.
The Jews that were there, they didn't make a bracha on half Halel. They didn't make a bracha because they felt that they were part of the Israeli Jewish community. Essentially, that's true. They were part of the Israeli Jewish community. But I'll give you a secret. Even the Ashkenazim who are indigenous to the land of Israel, meaning those who for generations were there, they don't make a bracha on half Halel either.
Rishalmis.
Because of the Rambam. So here's the question. Why do the Sephardim in Morocco, Algeria, Tunisia make a bracha on half Halel? The Rambam argues. Tell me why. The same reason Ashkenazim made a bracha on half Halel. Maran said one opinion, then he said a second opinion. Whose opinion do you follow? The second opinion. They're right. Maran says to make a bracha on half Halel. Chacham Ovadia says, see, you don't know how to read Shulchan Aruch either. Now you made Aliyah to Israel. And the Jewish communities all moved to Israel. And Maran said, when you live in Israel, you don't make a bracha on half Halel. And the Jews say, no, we have a minhag. The minhag is, we made a bracha on half Halel. Outside of Israel, just because we're coming to Israel, we're not taking back our minhag. So Chacham Ovadia said, that if you are in a community, and you hear a Sephardic person make a bracha on half Halel, you are not allowed to answer Amen to his bracha. Because he's saying God's name in vain. What about the Ashkenazim? The Ashkenazim have on who to rely. And they have on who to rely. And therefore by the Ashkenazim, it could be that they're allowed to make a bracha on half Halel. Chabad, by the way, has an interesting custom. Tell me what Chabad's custom is. Rosh Chodesh. The custom is only the Chazan makes the bracha, and everyone answers Amen and they don't repeat the blessing.
Right.
That way...
But my rabbi in Mansi, the big rabbi, told me, you don't know whether he made for everybody.
For everybody.
Everybody.
Assuming you have a real Chazan, let's say it was a rabbi who made the bracha.
But ask him whether everybody in mind. Most people know, he just say.
Eli's right. You don't know if the Chazan has you in mind. You know, most Chazanim today, they should sit in the back seat of the Beit Knesset. They're a real Chazan. So, what do we do, Sephardim, before we make a bracha on Halel? Someone tell me?
We bring an Ashkenaz up.
No. We say, he's right, he's not lying, Barry's not lying. We say, Birshut Morai V'Rabotai, with the permission of the whole community. And everyone answers back, Shamayim. Yeah, go ahead. Whenever you hear Sephardim say Shamayim, run, because that means they're about to do something. Yeah, Shamayim. And then he makes the blessing. What does it mean? It means that we are all in agreement that he's having us in mind. We do the same thing when
we start benching.
by benching.
And also-
Why? Tell me why by benching. What's the original Sephardic custom?
You put the
Say
person,
amen to the
person who's leading
The person who's leading says it for everybody, and everyone is quiet, and they answer Amen to his blessings.
And Yemenites.
And the Yemenites do that as well. By Sfirat HaOmer, they say Birshut Morai V'Rabotai. But we make the blessing afterwards. Who's he saying Birshut Morai V'Rabotai for?
Those who didn't count.
Very nice. Those who didn't count. Very good.
Oh.
Those who didn't count. So he's having in mind to be Yotzenem. So some say the rest of us shouldn't say Shamayim. Because we don't have in mind. But okay, everyone says Shamayim. What can hurt you to say Shamayim? The question is, so why on the first night does he say Birshut Morai V'Rabotai? That's a good question. So it could be that the custom started and they started so they didn't stop it and something along those lines. So if I have not confused you thoroughly until now, let's take it back to our community. I am very biased towards the opinion that I don't care who argues with Maran. If Maran says to make a blessing, we make a blessing. I know Sephardic tradition disagrees. I know Sephardim, we have a tradition, even two people argue with Maran about a blessing, we don't make the blessing. Okay, I'm going to go to hell for following Shulchan Aruch. I'm willing to do that.
But you always mean two people argue with Moran in Shulchan Aruch.
Two, have his contemporaries, not like, today two people argued with him.
Because to make a difference of that, like you said that originally a couple months ago, we studied here that the 200 rabbis were all on Moran's side. So
Very nice.
Right. So we're talking about...
People perhaps who were before him, like Rishonim, The Rambam and Rashi argued with Maran, so we would take back his opinion. I disagree. Not me. It's not my style. I have for my rabbis a tradition coming all the way back from Morocco, from Spain. We follow Maran through water, through fire, through whatever. It doesn't make a difference. We follow Maran through it. With exceptions. Everyone has exceptions.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Everyone has exceptions.
Are there exceptions?
Absolutely. Everything. There are exceptions. Almost every rule in the world there are exceptions. Even to that rule there's an exception. And therefore we have a problem here. The problem is that most Sfaradim follow Rabbi Ovadia Yosef, who got rid of this blessing. And rightfully so. The Rambam says not to say it. In Israel the custom was not to say it. So we came with our custom to say it. Okay, he didn't care. Chacham Ovadia was very strong in his halachot. If he thought he was right, so what did he do, Chacham Ovadia? Chacham Ovadia changed many things inside of our Siddur. The Sephardic Siddur that you have today is not the real Sephardic Siddur. It's Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Siddur. Almost every one of your Siddurim. Except for these on the shelf, the new ones that we bought. All those white Siddurim are Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's Nusach. Those of you who use Hebrew English books, the Orot, Sephardic Siddur, that's Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's Nusach. Laman Shemo Be'ahava, that's his Nusach. Ichavedat, the Chazon Ovadia, the Kavanat Hashem. All these books are Rabbi Ovadia. What did he do? Chacham Ovadia was a brilliant person. Chacham Ovadia still sells or sold the cheapest books in Israel. You know, when you go to buy a normal book in the store, you pay, let's say I'm going to give you Israeli prices, 70 to 90 shekels a book. Yeah, it makes sense. It's around 20, 30, something around that. That's how much you pay here for a book also. Chacham Ovadia made sure that every time he printed a book, he got it subsidized. And at the highest price you could buy one of his books for?
5 shekels.
30 shekels. And that way, if a young Torah scholar had to go to the store and choose to buy a set of books, he would inevitably buy his books because they were the cheapest on the shelf. And after doing this for 70 years, pretty much every Torah scholar bought Rabbi Ovadia Yosef's books. Once Rabbi Ovadia Yosef got power among the Torah scholars, so then how do you do the people? The people are the hardest people to change because all they have are customs. You can't explain to them your custom's right, your custom's wrong. Chacham Ovadia got Siddurim printed and had them subsidized by all kinds of private donors. And almost every Bet Knesset that was Sephardic in Israel received a free box of Siddurim. 100 Siddurim. Now every synagogue at some point in its history is going to need new Siddurim. So if you have a brand new box of Siddurim, why in the world, it says Sephardic Siddurim, why would you go buy other Siddurim? And that's why today if you go to every Sephardic synagogue in the world, you'll find Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Siddurim. Because our Siddurim, the Siddur that I pray for in my home, cost about, I don't want to lie to you, around 100 shekels. Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Siddur costs around 15 shekels.
15 shekels.
So obviously you're going to buy Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Siddur. Obviously. So if you open up his Siddur, it doesn't even have a blessing for half Halel inside of it. It's not even there. It's not. You don't have the option to say it. So today what you have are communities that came from Morocco and for 70 years have been praying from Rabbi Ovadia Yosef Siddur. That's already almost 2 generations. And you come to them and say, your forefathers made a bracha on the Halel. And they tell you, no, they didn't.
Where is it?
No, my grandfather prayed from this Siddur, and this is the Siddur, and it's not even in the Siddur. And so what is it you do? Rabbi Ovadia Yosef won the war, and we lost, and they think we're crazy. It's a slight Sephardic history revisionism. It's a nice story, and it's true, and you can research it on your own if you like. This is how Chacham Ovadia conquered the world. By the way, asking a non-Jew to do something on Shabbat is not allowed. Not allowed. Unless it's necessary, in which case you can only hint to the non-Jew that it's very hot in here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I can't. No, very nice. You cannot ask before Shabbat, because what's the difference on
What
Shabbat?
about the stroller?
Very nice. Wait a second, we'll get there.
Oh yeah.
So we just hint. Hopefully someone will get it. Okay, I can't turn on the air conditioner. Oh, why not? Is it broken? No, because I can't. Why not? It's my Sabbath. Okay. That's normally where you get stuck. You have to hint in enough ways to make sure, can you please turn the air conditioning on for me? When it comes to a group of people, a majority of people, like a large group, for example, a synagogue, you don't have to hint. You're allowed to just ask. Because the prohibition of not telling a non-Jew directly is trumped by the need of a community in halakha. And therefore, for example, if you were in the heat was on in the middle of Shabbat, and really you needed the air conditioning on, you can actually ask a goy, please turn on the air conditioning.
So this is in your house.
Right? So it's when it's for private need, like for us, for our family, for not a majority of people, for a small group of people. That's when you have to hint. Now, the question is, what is a great need? Is it only dependent on people, or is it dependent also on the pressing need? For example, someone's, I don't know, a good example to tell you. Oh, the stroller example. One lady needs to get the shul because she's under house arrest. She doesn't have an Eruv. You're allowed to ask somebody not Jewish to push the stroller for you directly before Shabbat. Why? Because it's a great need for a lady to be at shul on Shabbat. In America, a lady who doesn't go to shul on Shabbat is pretty much secluded from the community. And therefore, Rabbi Peretz ruled for us in our community that we're allowed to ask a non-Jew to push a stroller for us on Shabbat. Because it's a great need, is not just dependent on numbers, but also on the situation at hand. So let's ask you a different question. What if there's something on Shabbat that's allowed for someone Sepharadic, but not allowed for someone Ashkenazi? I'll tell you when this happened in yeshiva. You're going to see this next year. It happened all the time. According to the Ashkenazim, there's a problem with opening up bottles on Shabbat. Not all Ashkenazim, most Ashkenazim. Oh, it happened to you when you were there, right?
They asked us what
most Ashkenazim are of the
guys
opinion
open all the
that
soda
you're not
bottles.
allowed to open up a soda bottle on Shabbat or a water bottle on Shabbat.
Not a wine bottle.
It depends how the cap is made.
Well, I mean,
Because it breaks the seal.
Because it breaks the seal, causing the little piece. Can I have the water bottle for a second? Barry, yours?
You're creating a cup.
You're creating a vessel. Now, I had never got a straight answer if this is the vessel that I'm creating, because I broke it from here, or if by opening this, now this is usable and you've created a vessel. Ashkenazim have the same problem about opening cans up on Shabbat. If you open up a can of pickles, you know those Israeli cans where you have to like rip the lid off? Yeah? So then some people, they'll make the grave mistake of putting that can back in the refrigerator, and the next morning when they want to have some pickles, it's going to taste like metal. They don't know that that's what happens, right? But the question is, are you allowed to open up that can? Ashkenazim, and again, by Ashkenazim there's no standard. So some say yes, some say no, but the majority of Ashkenazim, Torah observant Ashkenazim, when it comes to opening up cans on Shabbat, won't open them on Shabbat unless they make a hole in the bottom of the can.
Hole in the bottom.
Sure. Yeah, I'll tell you why. Because that way when you open the top, you haven't created a vessel. It's not really a vessel because there's a hole in the bottom of the vessel.
How do you do that on Shabbat? You have to take a hammer and a...
when you make a hole,
You need an awl.
Yeah, you need a non-Shabbat.
Yeah.
You'd have to use a knife.
But you're allowed to. You're allowed to do that on Shabbat, to open up a can.
The mercury and
And therefore,
lead sheeting.
what happened in yeshiva was when guys would bring soda bottles to Shabbat, so those who remembered, Ashkenazi guys, they would open up before Shabbat and then close it and bring it to the dining room.
So Sephardim can open the bottle.
Sephardim are allowed to open up a bottle?
Why?
We don't agree to this halakha of making and not making. We
It
have.
did happen.
So what do we do?
It did happen.
What do we do?
Life of the party.
We suddenly become the Shabbat goy. That's us, the Sephardim. Oh, hey, can you open up my bottle for me? I remember about a year or two into this fad of asking Sephardim to open up bottles, some genius came up with this problem. What's the problem? You know, if a non-Jew were to do something for you on Shabbat, if you ask him directly to do it, the only time you're directly allowed to ask a non-Jew to do something for you on Shabbat is if a community, or if he's doing it for himself. For example, let's say a non-Jewish guy wants a glass of tea, so he plugs in the urn of hot water. He wants to make himself a cup of tea. Are you allowed to go and drink the hot water afterwards, make yourself a glass of tea?
No.
Of course. He's not allowed to heat up water. You can't tell him, oh, I need you to heat up water, please, for us. Well, I'm not allowed to heat up for you. For myself, I'm allowed to. So his intention is very important. So if he drinks that first glass, all the rest of the water in that urn become kosher for you to use on Shabbat.
By the way, this weekend, because the electricity going off, you have the urn plugged into hot water.
A lot of things are going to be coming up. I told you we'll talk about. I'm going to probably send out an email about all of these things that are happening.
If it goes back on again,
Right.
use the water.
Right.
That's big
A lot of
concern.
questions that are going to come up. So let me just. So what it means is, if you want someone to do something for you on Shabbat, he has to be doing it for his own benefit. So someone said, "Listen, you can't ask a Sephardi guy to open up the glass, the bottle for you on Shabbat, because he's opening it up for you. So you have to tell him, open it up and please take some soda." So what do? We'd have like a collection cup, like
Turning a Sephardi into a goy.
sure.
It's a different status than.
Oh, very nice. Thank you, Zev. Says Chacham Ovadia, I don't understand who made this problem up. A Sephardic person is different. Ashkenazi Sephardic person is different than a Jewish person and a non-Jewish person. You also agree that a Sephardic person is allowed to do this in Shabbat. The law of not telling a non-Jew, you don't find in the Shulchan Aruch not telling a Jew. There's no such concept in halakha, and therefore Rabbi says the whole thing is a silly game. And you're direct. Tell a Sephardic person, can you please do this for me? He's allowed to. He's allowed to. Just like someone who keeps Rabbeinu Tam time, Saturday night, who keeps extra minutes of Shabbat, he's allowed to ask somebody who doesn't to please do something. Can you pick up my dry cleaning on the way home? But you're not allowed to. But he's allowed to, and he's Jewish. All right, please hold on to this. Sephardim and Ashkenazim are the same religion. Please put that into your book. We're the same people, right? We're the same people. There's something important to know. And therefore, you didn't know what you were bringing up. But really, this concept doesn't apply. Let me tell you one last halakha.
By the way, do you have a Rosh Chodesh invitation for us?
One last halakha. The last halakha is a famous halakha. Maran in Yoreh De'ah, the second volume of Shulchan Aruch, in chapter Tzadichet. Tzadichet is 98. It's the beginning of the laws of kosher, or the beginning of the laws of meat and not kosher meat mixing in with kosher food. That's where we learn about nullifying in 60. All these halachot. If pig falls into your kosher chicken soup, someone I know is in a butcher shop and slicing up a piece of pig and it fell into your pot of chicken soup you were taking home. Whatever happened. Is your soup kosher?
He said yes.
Let's help the sheep.
1 to 60 ratio.
Yeah.
Yes.
1 to 60 ratio, meaning if you have 60 times soup than you do pig, the soup is kosher. Why?
That's the majority.
I know that's what I said. It's no offense. So why though? What's the reason?
Because
It's not found
you
in
Oh,
you.
can't taste the pig.
Baruch Hashem, this is the halakha. People, because you can't taste the pig anymore. The assumption that our rabbis, they conducted experiments. The assumption is that if you have 60 times the amount of something, you can no longer taste what it is that fell in. What happens if you have 60 times the amount of soup, but it still tastes like good, chazer flesh soup over there, pig meat over there?
It's obvious.
Are you allowed to eat that soup?
No.
No. Even if it's nullified in 60, it doesn't help.
Nullified
It cannot
only
taste
because
like it anymore.
tastes good.
Almost
It's
all.
an objective, it's in your mind.
Yes.
What do you mean?
How would you know what chazer tastes like?
Oh, thank you, Zev. So here, let me bring up.
You know.
It's Chazarai.
Actually, I'm not agree with the 160. Because you put the spices, it's 1 to 1,000. And you
Right.
still can feel the
Depends on how
Spices
strong
are
the
much
taste
more
is.
aromatic.
Yeah.
So say very simply what you're saying. There are things that 1 to 60 doesn't work.
Right.
Beautiful, which is
Pig
why
isn't one of
Sephardim,
them.
we don't agree with 1 to 60.
You know.
Oh, let's learn Shulchan Aruch. So, says in Siman Tzadichet, 98. You should know. Sephardim and Ashkenazim. This is going to be my class in Shavuot, but I didn't get that far. The style of halakha is very different. The Ashkenazim were very, I'd like to call it scientific, mathematical. Everything is measured. Everything has measurements. Everything you can quantify. Everything has. For example, what is a kazait? They'll tell you kazait is like this. It weighs like this. It weighs like that. Where do you put your mezuzah? What direction? Everything has to do with numbers. Everything, right? That is Ashkenazi Judaism was. It's not enough to tell me like the size of an olive. What if I don't have an olive? I want to know how much is the size of an olive, right? My Sephardim, Judaism never became quantified. It was very natural. It was. An olive is an olive. You know what an olive is, so go to the store, find an olive, and then figure it out. But we're not going to give you a measurement for how much is an olive.
It's qualitative as opposed to quantitative.
Okay, I don't know which side here is. It's not a better or worse. It's a different approach to halakha. One is very mathematical, and one is very natural. The same thing is here in halakha. When it came to pig falling into your soup,
How did pig come to that?
I'll tell you very simply. It didn't come into the house.
Yeah, it's
One of your
Most
workers
people-
brings a ham sandwich and a piece drops.
Most people didn't have ovens. You know this?
Yeah.
community of it.
There was a community oven in the middle of the town, and you had a place to put your. You know, this is. I don't know if you know
I
this.
know.
Most places
Bring
didn't
your
have
cholent there.
ovens. In Europe, this was the custom. They put their cholent there. And you probably read old art scroll biographies that people would put their cholent in the communal oven. There were kosher food there, non-kosher food there, and on the stovetop. It was who was putting fire in the whole Shabbat. It was someone not Jewish. And they would bring their cholent home on the way back from the Bet Knesset. And this is what they did in Jerusalem until they got electricity and people had ovens in their house. They had some bakery that was going on. They would put their pots over there and they would bring it home as they came home from Bet Knesset. When it came to this, push comes to shove. So you have some guys making his not kosher food next to yours. He tells you, "Oh, I'm sorry, something of mine fell into your soup." Well, what fell into your soup? How much of it fell into the soup? I don't remember. I don't know. Or it was this much. You can start measuring. How do you know exactly how much fell and didn't fall? My answer is very simple. We judge things tam ki'ikar. The taste is what determines if something is kosher or not. You ever heard someone say, "It tastes kosher"? Right? They know it's deeper than what they think it is. If it tastes kosher, it's okay. If your chicken soup tastes like chicken and not like pig, you're not allowed to eat that chicken soup. You cannot eat the piece of pig if you find it in the soup, right? You have to take it out.
How do you know it tastes pig?
Oh, says Eli, a wonderful question. How in the world are you supposed to know if it tastes like pig? You're not allowed to taste it. Maybe it's not kosher.
That's why you have a quantitative measure.
Very nice. The Ramah, that's where the quantitative measure comes from. But that's not where it really comes from. Close. Very close. Maran says very simple. What's the problem? Go take it to your next door neighbor who's not Jewish. Tell him, what kind of soup does it taste like to you?
So you're trusting the taste of the non-Jew?
What? Well, he knows what pig tastes like. You don't know what pig tastes like. So, Maran says,
This is all for taste.
Maran says, I had to happen sometime today. Maran says, you can't ask him directly because then he'll know what you're trying to figure out. And a natural reaction of people is to try to make you happy. So they're like, oh, don't worry, it doesn't taste like pig. You don't want him to know why you're asking. You're just asking what flavor chicken, what does it taste like in the ingredients.
What do you think it is?
Yeah? And if this is called maslat. Masiach lefi tumo. He's just innocently telling you what he thinks the soup tastes like. Not because you're asking, does it taste like pig? Obviously he'll feel your urgency and he'll tell you no. That's a problem. We don't want to do that. Right? That, or you can bring in a professional chef, someone who deals with food. And then you can ask him directly, a non-Jewish guy, so, can you please taste does it taste like pig? Oh, but maybe he'll also tell you, oh, sure, we like Jews to eat pig, so I'll tell you it doesn't taste like pig. He said that a person, you trust him, that because he has a reputation to uphold in his cooking business, he's not going to lie to you. From this, by the way, you learn a lot of the laws of hashgacha for food. How far do you trust a non-Jew? If it's to respect your religion when it comes to food, he doesn't care about your religion. He doesn't have your religion. He's not sensitive to, did they put it on the meat countertop or the dairy countertop? But if it also has a problem of like allergy contamination, for example, when a company tells you that something doesn't have dairy, and it really doesn't have dairy, and if they would have dairy in there, someone who is lactose intolerant would sue them, then you can actually trust this company, not because they care about you, but because they care about not getting themselves in trouble, right? This is called a non-Jew who has an occupation, he has a reputation he's to uphold. So you can ask a non-Jew in two different ways. Says Rabbi Moshe Israelish, I don't know about this halacha. Where does Rabbi Moshe Israelish live? In Poland. The Jews and the non-Jews in Poland never had this flowery period of getting along with each other. Never, ever, ever. And they didn't trust non-Jews. Very simply because half of them were out to kill them, the other half were out to get them in trouble. That's how it was. It's a sad reality that the Jews in Europe were in. The Sephardim had on and off periods. Sometimes yes, sometimes no, but I would venture to say, not that it was great. People make a mistake. It was so great for the Sephardim by the Arabs. It's not true. It wasn't great. We had massacres and pogroms and all kinds of things also. But there were very many times where the respect and feelings were mutual. Oh, it's nice, we get along, we're okay, we're in the same neighborhood. And therefore, Rabbi Yosef Karo says you can trust someone who's not Jewish.
But the problem is that most Sephardim lived among Muslims who didn't eat pork either.
Okay, so I use pork as an example, but I'm not necessarily, it's not the only not kosher meat out there.
Well, shellfish.
So the Ramah says you can't trust non-Jews. And therefore, we never ask non-Jews. And even if a non-Jew were to tell you that it doesn't taste like pig, you can't eat this soup. And therefore, it says everything has to be nullified in 60. Everything. That's the only way you can eat it. And that's why it's become standard to hear nullified in 60. So we came up with a novel idea in Rabbi Peretz's Bet Midrash. An Ashkenazi guy doesn't know how much pig fell into there. He doesn't know how to measure 60, not 60. So what does he do? Tell me. He has his Sephardic guy next door. He says, listen, I can't ask the neighbor, but maybe you can ask the neighbor for me. The Sephardic guy says, I'm allowed to ask the neighbor. So he goes to ask the neighbor. He comes back to the Ashkenazi neighbor and says, listen, the guy next door said it's okay. It doesn't taste like pig. Rav Peretz says, the Ashkenazi guy is allowed to do it. Because the Ramah says you can't trust the guy sitting in Poland. But the Sephardic guy you're allowed to trust. The Ramah would say there's no problem with trusting a Sephardic guy, halakha. And if a Sephardic person could eat it, you could eat it also. And therefore, that's what we do in such a situation. You would ask a Sephardic person to go to the non-Jewish person to come back to the Ashkenazi person. That's how it works.
So is that what Sephardim do?
Today, practically, we could do such a thing. In the kasher industry, it's become a little bit of, if there's even a chance that in the same year, in the same factory, they once brought in a hamburger, they won't even make kosher food in there. And therefore, the question doesn't come up so much, because people are ridiculously stringent about these things. But yeah, practically, if such a thing were to happen, we could ask a non-Jewish person to tell us, what does it taste like? To make a long story short, to summarize everything. By Halevy Rosh Chodesh, Sephardim don't make a bracha, even though Maran says to make a bracha, because of Sa'bal, Safek Brachot La'akev. Do you need to make a blessing to fulfill a mitzvah?
Sometimes.
It's true, but only by one mitzvah, by Truma, which we don't do today. If you put on tefillin, you forgot to make a blessing. Did you lose the mitzvah of tefillin?
No.
No, if you put on tzitzit, you forgot to make the blessing. Did you lose the mitzvah of tzitzit? No. So what happens if you wash your hands and you don't make a blessing? Did you lose the mitzvah of washing your hands? No. And therefore Maran says, let's take a halfway stance. We'll do the mitzvah, but we won't make a blessing. And that's why every time you find that we do a mitzvah without making a blessing, this is the logic. We have an obligation to be lenient regarding the blessing, but not regarding the mitzvah. And therefore we'll do the mitzvah even though we don't make a blessing. Like many of you might do tonight. I know it's almost 10 o'clock, or it is 10 o'clock, right? It is 10 o'clock right now. When we do a mitzvah, sorry that I didn't give you any chaver the time today. When we do tonight, Birkat Mapil Chavle Shana Meinai, before you go to sleep, there's a blessing on Shema. According to many poskim, after midnight, halachic midnight, you're not allowed to say Hashem's name anymore. You can't make this blessing. Because this blessing only applies to people who go to sleep until midnight. But those who fall asleep until they go to sleep after midnight, they cannot make this blessing. Ashkenazim disagree, and they follow the opinion that says you're allowed to make the blessing. The Sephardim technically are allowed to make the blessing with Hashem's name, but they choose Sabal. We don't know if we should make a blessing. We don't know if we shouldn't make a blessing. They don't make the blessing. And therefore Sephardim, when they say the blessing, they say it without Hashem's name. So if you open up a Sephardic Siddur to the bedtime Shema, you'll find that Hashem's name is in parentheses. It says before midnight, say it. If not, don't say it. You find many mitzvot that we don't say, and like I told you, Ashkenazim have seemingly neglected this problem of avoiding brachot. Sephardim, we do it too much. Everywhere we don't make a bracha. And that's also a problem. Neither opinions are right here. You have to have some kind of balance in the middle where we do make a brachot, sometimes we don't make a brachot. And the entire purpose of this class was to give you a background knowledge of two things. One, that you can do mitzvot without making a blessing, and you still do the mitzvah. There's a special mitzvah to make the blessing, but that's not, it's not an impediment to your doing the mitzvah, fulfilling the mitzvah. And the second thing is that between Sephardim and Ashkenazim, it's now the 3 weeks, we can rely on each other a little bit more than we already do. We're allowed to ask the other one, if it's kosher for this one, it's kosher for that one. We don't have to make such a big ruckus around the whole world. We can rely on each other, we can see each other as the same nation, as the same people. It'll do us a lot of good eventually, B'ezras Hashem. In halachot, we mentioned Sephardim, Ashkenazim, because you have two schools of thought. But in reality, in day-to-day life, it doesn't make a difference. We're the same people, and so what? I do this, you do that, big deal. A lot of people. You wore a blue shirt, I wore a white shirt. Who cares? What difference does it make? Nothing. Yeah. So I like white shirts, you might like blue shirts. Whatever it is that goes. Okay, Baruch Hashem, that's the only difference between us, is where we come from, and that's already a few generations ago. So we shouldn't let it hold us back in the future. And I'm sure if that's the style, the personality, the approach to the world that we take on, it'll be okay. I once told somebody, you can't learn the Rambam if you wouldn't marry his daughter.
What?
You can't learn the Rambam if you wouldn't marry his daughter. Don't tell me how great the Rambam is if you don't like his children. Yeah? Don't tell me how wonderful Rashi is if you don't like Ashkenazim. So don't study Rashi. Skip it. Cut it out of your Chumash. Delete it. Because what do you mean? How can you like somebody not their grandfather? You have to have a little bit of sechel. We're one people. We have the same commentaries, the same Torah, the same halachot. So we differ a little bit. Big deal. That should be our approach. That should be our style. B'ezrat Hashem will take us out of here and take us back to Eretz Yisrael. And once we're all there, I'll tell you, they won't even have the guts to throw rockets at us. Because if all the Jews of the United States made Aliyah, we would be the majority over there, and nobody would even be dare to mess with us. So B'ezrat Hashem, it should happen soon. Everyone should have a beautiful evening.